All right, welcome back. So, Tom Wilson was fined $5,000. The NHL has sent the message both that that's worthy of a fine, slap on the wrist, and that it's not worthy of a suspension. So, for people saying, well, that was clean, it was fine, no, because they fined him for it, and yet it's not worthy of a suspension. So, I don't know where else to go with that. I do know that I was expecting a long suspension, and not because it's Wilson, because at some point in time, an incident like this is going to end somebody's career. We are going to either see a player die on the ice, or we're going to see somebody out for a year plus from an incident like this. Panarin was very fortunate not to be severely injured. And for people who want to say, well, that's what you get for jumping on Wilson's back. No. I can't get there. Because I watch scrums every night. I watch every game. And that doesn't happen in every game. No, not everybody's as strong as Tom Wilson, but when you're that strong, you have a certain responsibility. And it reminds me of Todd Bertuzzi. Bertuzzi, when he played hockey, he would go out there, and this is before the Steve Moore incident. And I'd watch him skate around the ice, and he would just flatten people. He would just absolutely drill them into the ice. Or into the boards, and then they'd fall down, and he'd just skate away. I remember thinking, man, he has no idea how strong he is. Like, Bertuzzi was so strong on his skates. And he over a 7-game series could wear players down. But he also was on that edge, right? So eventually he crossed that line, the Moore incident, and his career was forever colored by that incident. It is only a matter of time with Wilson, because Wilson's always riding that line. It is only a matter of time before he ends someone's career. And we're having this discussion, and there will be people saying, well, it's fine. It's fine. Because at the time the Steve Moore incident took place, there were plenty of Canuck fans that defended it and said, well, it's on Moore. It's Moore's own fault. He injured Naslund the game before that. Well, what about the coach? The coach shouldn't have had him out there in that situation. Well, Bertuzzi just wanted to fight him. He should just turned around and fought him. Even though Moore had already fought once in that game. And after a fight, that's supposed to be done. But the Canucks weren't done with it. They were fired up and they were angry. So either Wilson's going to end up in a situation where he ends someone's career, like as happened with Moore, and then we're here again. Or there's somebody in the league that decides we've had enough of Wilson's crap, and they do something to him in response, and then the NHL's forced to perhaps, kick a guy out for a full year for targeting Wilson. Because the Rangers last night after that game, they were pretty clear in their opinions, and Peter Laviolette, because he's the coach of the player that's responsible, rather than say, yeah, I didn't think that was great, he just goes, that was a regular everyday scrum. And I don't know where to go with it. I don't. But I can't get there. I can't get there that it's okay. And I have to say that when the next time the NHL compares itself to the other big leagues in North America, I think this is part of the reason why the NHL doesn't hit that next level in terms of popularity. Because for casual fans, for people who don't watch hockey, they're going to see that incident. And they're going to hear, he didn't get suspended for that? Man, I can't watch that sport. That's ridiculous. The funny thing, too, is I've seen people saying, well, it's like wrestling. No. Wrestling is scripted. It's planned out. And guys make sure they take care of each other. And if you hurt a wrestler in the ring, you get a bad reputation and you get chewed out backstage. So no, it's not like wrestling. This is just injuring somebody. And the funny thing too, people always talk about the code and they always talk about like having respect. You don't punch a player when he's down. That's like a thing. You do not punch a player when he's down on the ice. If a player's in a vulnerable position, you don't punch them. That's been a rule since I was a kid. You just don't. Guys are in a fight, and they're fighting, and as soon as somebody goes down, you go, it's done. And that's always kind of been the code. And here's Wilson, a guy's face down on the ice, and he's punched him. I don't care if it's in the shoulder. It's there. The guy's in a prone, vulnerable position, and you're punching him. Oh, it's fine. All right. We'll see what happens from here. I know that on our Discord, it's all cat pictures right now and pet pictures. Because It's been filled with people that are not very happy about the ruling of only $5,000. And then I'm seeing reporters who are reporting it and people being mad at the reporters for relaying the information, or being mad at the reporters for relaying that information and saying, I can't defend this decision. So they get mad at the reporters both for having an opinion or for just not having an opinion and just relaying the information. So, yep, that's where we're at right now. Playoffs are coming. And again, I'm really, really hopeful that the next time they play the Rangers, which is, tomorrow? That cooler heads prevail. I don't know how optimistic I am about that. Because again, we've been down this road. We've been down this road before. And again, if you're defending him, fine. Because there were people that defended Bertuzzi. There were people who defended Dale Hunter. There were people who defended Chris Simon. There were people who loved Chris Simon. Thought he was a great player. The only ones I can't remember people defending are like Matt Cook, Ulf Samuelsson, and even Ulfie. You'd still see people saying, well, I think that's overblown. He was out there intentionally injuring people and then turtling if he had to answer for it. And Marchment's another one. Brian Marchment's another one that I can't remember a lot of people defending it. There's a reason that people have this reaction to certain players, because certain players are dirty players. So, well, if it was anybody else, but it's not. It's not. So, and I mean, same thing with Matt Cook, right? Well, if it was anybody but Matt Cook, yeah, but it's not though, right? Okay, so that said, pushed aside, I don't really have anything else to add to it. The league needs to change its mentality about these kinds of incidents, because again, it's costing the league. I think it's costing them market share. I think it's costing them fans, and I just think it sends the wrong message now. Just all right. So if somebody touches your goalie, everything is fair game then. Got it. Cool. Great. Okay, let's move on to other news that isn't Wilson related, shall we? Can we do that? All right. Spencer Knight. Good news. This is good news. He's the youngest goalie in history, apparently, to start 4-0-0. That's fantastic. And again, it's not that he's been overly fantastic, but he's been good. And he is the future in net for the Florida Panthers, and the future looks pretty bright. So there you go. He wins all 4 of his starts. Like I said, he looked good in the World Junior Championship. Just because he looks good in the World Junior Championship. I never said, am I supposed to say he looked bad in the World Championship, so he's going to be great in the NHL, or almost said WWE. Feels like I'm doing a wrestling video all of a sudden. Not today. Kopitar. Anze Kopitar, not the youngest. However, 999 points. He's on the verge of 1,000. And yeah, Hall of Fame career. Sure, 1,000 points to go with 2 Stanley Cup rings, a couple of Selkies. It's a Hall of Famer. Clearly, I would imagine first ballot. Kopitar is one of the best two-way forwards of his generation. We can discuss, his relation to Datsuk at some point. I think it's basically widely accepted Datsuk might be one of the best two-way players ever. Bergeron would be up there. And obviously, if you're looking back far enough, Guy Carbonneau, Bob Gainey, right? But yeah, Kopitar, 999 points. And when he hits 1,000, there's a good chance I end up doing a career video. So, stay tuned for that, because he'll hit 1,000 points before the end of the season. Speaking of guys trying to hit 1,000 points, Ryan Getzlaf. Getzlaf, undecided on whether or not he's going to play next season. And I don't know. It's one of those things where his play's definitely not where it used to be. I think he's been better this year than last year. I know the points are still down, but I think he's been better this year than last year. I think last year they were asking him to do too much. I think this year I don't think they're asking him to do as much as they were last year. I think he was just put in the wrong position last year. But Getzlaf, I think if he decides to come back for one more year, I don't see that would be an issue, and I think Anaheim would be glad to have him back. I can't see him playing anywhere but Anaheim. I think that would just look weird if he went somewhere else. But if he did hit UFA status, I think there'd be teams that would kick the tires on him. He would be a guy that I could see Seattle saying, yeah, we could use a fourth-line veteran who can lead the players, and he's already on the West Coast. So, I mean, it's one of those things. Now, I don't think they'd take him in the expansion draft. I just mean as a UFA. I think he would attract interest from a brand new team to the NHL. He's got a lot of experience he can impart on another team. So I do think, though, that if he comes back, it'll just be for Anaheim. Devin Dubnyk had a positive test. He's in isolation. They're expecting him to be out for the full 2 weeks. So 14 days down. So Johansson's up again. It's Grubauer and Johansson. And Grubauer last night didn't look fantastic, but it's his first game in a while, so it's not like I'm going to slag on him in the review or anything. And I didn't. 58-minute review. I can't believe I got through that. But yeah, positive test has him in isolation, and so he'll be out for a couple of weeks. And we shouldn't see as much of this as we did, say, a month, 2 months ago, because most of the players on the American teams, I believe, are vaccinated at this point, so we really shouldn't be seeing that very often. And on the Canadian side, the numbers have started going in the right direction in certain parts of the country, so hopefully that continues. But yeah, so Dubnyk will be out, so Johansson should probably get a start here or there. JT Miller. So if you're a Vancouver fan and you're looking for any kind of a positive, JT Miller's been that. So with Pettersson out, Miller's been playing at center. And it raises an interesting question. JT Miller clearly is far more comfortable at center and more productive. And he's a better all-around player for Vancouver as a center than he was on the wing. So he had a goal and an assist last night, and he was +2. And over their last 8 games, he's got 3 goals and 4 assists. So when Pettersson's back in this lineup, well, you're not going to have Miller on the third line. You're not going to have Pettersson, Horvat, Miller. Miller's a top 6 forward. You're not going to have Pettersson on the third line. You're definitely not going to have Horvat on the third line. Horvat's the best face-off man they have. If Miller's more comfortable at center, do you move Pettersson to the wing? So there are some interesting questions out of this, and would that help Pettersson after what was just an awful season? Would it help to move him to the wing? Because players on the wing, you have less responsibility on the ice than when you're at center. And JT Miller clearly seems to excel when he has that extra that extra responsibility. So Miller's been a bright spot on a team that's needed it. The fact he was +2 last night against the Oilers really kind of shows that, because they lost 5-3. So you look at a guy who's a plus and say, good on you. It's kind of how I could tell Darlene is playing better, is when Buffalo's losing a game. I think it was 7-2 as the score of one game, and I looked at the line, and Darlene was a +1 in the game. So I went, all right, so he didn't hurt them when he was on the ice. But yeah, so Miller's been a bright spot, and we'll see what they do next season with him and how the lineup's going to look for them. So yeah, as I mentioned earlier, Panarin's going to miss the remaining 3 games of the season, lower body injury, and all that Coach Quinn would say after the game was that he was okay, that there wasn't anything major, and yet clearly upset about the way things were done in that game. Mika Zibanejad upset as well. A lot of people were upset last night, and still are this morning, of course. But yeah, so hopefully Panarin's good to go in October. It sounds like he'll be fine. It sounds like if the Rangers were playing in the playoffs, we'd probably be talking about him maybe making an appearance in the first round, later in the first round, that kind of thing. Nick Foligno, hurt last night, upper body injury, likely day-to-day. He's going to miss their next game against Montreal. So, this is the thing with Foligno at this stage of his career. He does tend to get hurt here and there. And the way he plays the game, that's going to happen. He doesn't shy away from anything. So there's always going to be that risk. And so he's out, he's day-to-day, and I would think Toronto would take it easy with him because they're really counting on him. Riley Nash is skating for them as well, so looks like Nash will be good to go when the playoffs start. Start up your conspiracy theories now. And yeah, so Foligno, hopefully it's not that long. And speaking of cap circumvention, which is what people are going to say about, the Riley Nash thing and everything, it's not really, but I get it. So Stamkos and Kucherov for the Tampa Bay Lightning are both in regular jerseys at practice today. And what that means is they're taking contact, so they're close. Kucherov, of course, they've taken a nice, easy, slow approach to this and make sure he's 100% ready to come back when the playoffs start. And for Stamkos, I would think he probably gets into a game or 2 before the playoffs start. But yeah, I don't know how important first place is to Tampa. They're playing like it's important, but I don't know how important it is to management. And I think it's more important to them that Stamkos and Kucherov are okay. But again, I would probably try to get Stamkos into at least a game before the playoffs start. Kucherov, they can't. For cap reasons, I'm pretty sure they can't. So, yeah, Kucherov's going to have to wait until the playoffs, but Stamkos may very well be able to come back in. Good news for Cole Caufield fans. I'm one of them. He's on the top line in practice today, meaning that he's probably going to be on their top line for the next game, and why not? We know he should be in your first 3 that you put on the ice in overtime, and he's got a good goal-scoring touch, so why not play him more? Give him more ice time. He's clearly ready for it. The interesting thing with Caufield is it really is notable how much shorter and smaller he is than most of the players on his team. You can tell when he's on the ice. I can tell him, like, that's Caufield. I don't need to see his number. It's just, that's Caufield. And as long as he's able to continue to excel, he'll have a job. He will get lots of ice time. And he's fast. And again, he's a natural goal scorer. Caufield is the kind of player that would not have made it into the NHL 20 years ago. The NHL 20 years ago, where you have big physical players, they would have drilled him. He never would have made it. He wouldn't have been scouted. He wouldn't have been a first rounder. We saw plenty of players back then that, and at some point during the summer, maybe I could do a video on players that excelled, but they were smaller, and so either they didn't make it to the NHL or they didn't get drafted very high back then. The bias against smaller players is still there for certain teams, and it is notable that the team that wins the Stanley Cup usually won't have a defenseman under the height of 6 or 6'1". So defensemen have to be tall. St. Louis, definitely, and I'm pretty sure Tampa last year too. All their defensemen were taller. So, yeah, it's still a tall man's game, but if you're skilled like Caufield, you can play. And whereas 20 years ago, it was tough to find those. There were some examples of exceptions, but there were very few, comparatively speaking, with now. So in that game last night, too, what kind of gets overshadowed, obviously, by the Wilson incident, is that Ovechkin had a very short return. And so he left with an upper body injury. And yeah, so I don't know how long Ovechkin's going to be out. I just know that if they don't have Ovechkin in the playoffs, that will definitely affect their ability to move on. That division is going to be just brutal in the playoffs. If they end up playing against the Islanders, yeah, that could be an interesting matchup, right? If the Islanders end up being the team that finishes 4th, that could be a really interesting matchup. And then that would leave Boston and Pittsburgh as the other matchup. But I mean, if it's Washington and Boston, that could get really ugly. So anyways, yeah, Ovechkin, we'll see if he's out for a couple of days or how long he's out, but there you go. So, all right. Best advice I can give with the Wilson thing is that we just have to kind of put that to bed. I understand the upset and the anger, and I know there's people who want to laugh it off, and I know there's people who want to make, comments along the lines of it's okay, it's part of the game, this is just normal. My response to that is it really shouldn't be. If this league is ever going to stop looking Bush League to some people, it really shouldn't be. Really can't have that going on. And yes, that applies to everybody, including McDavid, including Crosby, everybody. This kind of stuff, you can't have it. The league should be doing more to protect star players and to punish some of the stuff we see in the game, because I've always been concerned, and I'm still concerned now, that at some point we're going to see some kind of life-altering injury, and we're going to look back at incidents like this and say the NHL could have done something to deter it, and they didn't. So there you go. Here's to hoping for a more boring night of hockey watching tonight, where there's the 5 games, and boring in that I don't like reporting on these things. But hey, let me know your thoughts in the comments section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.